Cameroon, the country shaped like an expecting mother, pregnant with resources, pregnant with opportunity, filled with diversity and a deeply rich history. Africa in miniature, a true expression of Africa's beauty.
Okay, we get it. Hey guys, welcome to our very first episode on Hidden Carries. Today, we'll be taking you on a naming ceremony. We'll be traveling across the Southwest region through to the Northwest region, and we will be visiting a couple of mothers, I know it sounds weird, but never mind, you get the gist of it soon enough.
She keeps calling it a naming ceremony, but to me it's more like an anniversary because we are going back to these places to understand the history behind the names of those waters.
I hate how he comes into history every damn time. I promise we're not that boring. At least the stories aren't. Trust me, most of these stories, I don't know about y'all, but I feel like most of the stories are very fun. In fact, we'll let you be the judge of that because we'll be bringing you some of the scoops and in our own wordings. And some of them you'll hear from the horse's mouth themselves.
We're going to make our first stop on our journey and we're going to be stopping at Limbe, the town of friendship. Okay, for anybody who has been to Limbe, you know of Cité Sonora and Cité Sik. Well, they have kind of interesting stories behind those names. Cité Sonora was a housing initiative brought up by the oil refinery company Sonora to house its workers. And Cité Sik has an even or slightly different story from Cité Sonora. SIC is the name of a company called Société Immobilière du Cameroun, and their job is to build low-income houses across the country. Now, the way the SIC houses work are, they will build a house and then they give that house out for rent. And after some time, it's like, I don't know the business word for it, but after some time, as you pay the rent, you're automatically buying the house. So the settlement that was built by SIC in Limbe, it's one very beautiful quarter that they called it Cité Sik.
So guys, next up we have Clerks Quarters. So Clerks is literally the British kind of name or British English kind of name for secretaries, and back then it was a settlement where most of the secretaries had houses or established houses for themselves, and it eased communication from their bosses and stuff like that. So it's easy for the boss to bring work and to communicate work related issues. So since most secretaries settled in that area, it was called Clerks Quarters. Then the next is lump sum. It's going to be a bit difficult for me to go through this without being a bit redundant, but please bear with me, okay? So, lump in English is like a chunk of something. And back then, civil service workers were paid in lumps, like a huge chunk of something. What we have in current working society for the civil service workers as the grow loan. So, like you work for a couple of times and maybe they'll be paying you like just small. Then at some point in time, they give you like huge amount of money. For those who are in the civil service, if you have somebody in the civil service, you get.
If you don't get it, forget about it.
So now we're going to talk about one of the most epic tales in our journey. We're going to be stopping at Sokolo, or rather the settlement of Sokolo. It's quite an interesting story.
This one is really such an old soul. Anyways, guys, the whole gist of it, we didn't think we could tell this particular story completely in our own terms, and it was better from the horse's mouth. And the horses is more like the OGs, people who lived in this time. So they know the story better and they said it better. We're going to listen to it the way it was narrated by them.
UPC was challenging Naito, because UPC fought the French. UPC that was like the nationalist movement that fought for Cameroon independence. So when the time reached to gain independence, the French, in their tricky manner, since they knew that the UPC leaders, were full nationalists and will not accept the continuation of French hegemony, they silently picked a stooge, who was Ahidjo, and handed power to him. So even when they handed power to him, the Maquizas, the UPCs who were fighting for independence, continued to fight Ahidjo. So in the course of trying to fight Ahidjo now started outright repression with the assistance of the French gendarmerie. And that is how Bamilekis ran into West Cameroon for refuge. Yes. That is how Bassas ran into West Cameroon for refuge. So if you see this is Sokolo in Limbe. Katie Sokolo, which you call Sokolo. It is actually Sokolo. Yes. And it is because of what? Because it was inhabited in the greatest majority by Bassas who ran away from who were UPC members and who ran to come and take refuge in West Cameroon. So we received them and gave them where to settle. Yeah. And the bulk of them settled in Isokolo there and we named the place Isokolo Quarter. That's what has become Sokolo today.
Now, it's not really the story of how Isokolo got its name, but it's more about the inhabitants or a certain group of inhabitants in Isokolo, because we know that in Isokolo there's also, what do they call them?
The Mokindi people, right? The Mokindi village, actually.
Okay, yes, there's the Mokindi village as well. So this is not concerning the inhabitants of Mokindi, but another part of the inhabitants of Isokolo. So, to be honest, yes, some of us grew up having, I remember an aunt or an elderly person in my life insulting somebody I know, insulting me, insulting a cousin, insulting a family friend, Maquiza. It was quite revealing to know what that word actually meant. So, to be called Maquiza means you're literally a rebel Bassa or Bamileke. Nah. Okay, so guys, our next stop is Kumba, aka K-Town. Raise your hands up if you're from K-Town. Our first stop is Alaska Street, and Alaska Street got its name from an Alaska company. Okay, so it wasn't the big company like we know now in the Western world and whatever, but they make Alaska. And what differentiated this Alaska from the Alaska a mom will make and give her children to go sell was the fact that the Alaska was sealed on both ends. So homemade Alaska would typically be sealed just on one end, but this one was sealed on both ends. And the conservation was stronger than the ones you make probably at home. Then they employed young boys who were dispatched with bicycles. They put the Alaska in coolers and then they go around selling it. And these boys were the ish of the town, like they were the talk of the town. So much so though that the people that retold this story tell us that people aspired to be bike men. Because back then, having a bicycle or riding a bicycle was such a big deal. The norm was trekking. So these people, just the fact that they rode on bicycles, they sell these things and everything. When they walk around, people stand on the streets like to greet them, to wave at them. Anyways, that's how Alaska got its name, because of that company there.
So basically, the Alaska boys were the men on bicycles of the 90s and the 70s.
Something like that. Of course. They were. But my thing is this is what this is the one question that I walked away with, because like if back then we had such a producer mindset, where did we go wrong? Because right now, I mean, that was okay, let's not say innovative, but that was quite a cool idea, because our society now is more of a consumer society. We just consume. There's very little or less production right now. But that's my take. Anyways, would love to know what you think.
I think that's a question for a whole other episode.
Definitely, but please share your comments. Like, what do you really think about? Anyways, what do you think? What's your take when you hear our stories? But without further ado, let's move to Fominki Street. Ooh! Visit Kumba, visit Limbe, visit. You just need to go around,
Cameroon, if you're not in Cameroon, visit Cameroon.
and that's it. That's on period. But yeah, Fominki Street was named after the richest Bangor man at that time, whose name was Fominki. I just have to take a pause because 99.99. Anyways, he was the richest Bangor man. And then he was into exportation and importation of cocoa. So this man was this rich that he owned a horse, and not just a horse, he owned a white horse. Aijo used to travel all the way from Yaoundé to come for weekends at this man's place. Yes, he was that big. So yeah.
So that was bad for me. Yes. Or for me to stretch. Yes. They used to call him, was it produce professor? No, he was not a produce professor. They have forgotten that his own title that he had.
So Aijo used to visit him.
Aijo used to even visit him. Yes. Aijo, yes. He was very conscious that to keep Cameroon one, he had to continuously lobby and liaise with the principal and the principal architects of reunification.
So his house was different from all the houses that were being constructed back then. More like the houses that were being constructed back then were more of thatched houses or carabot houses, but his was like a solid block house.
Let it not sound strange to you that some of these things actually existed. You know, one of the OGs actually told me that how they used to move about within their villages and within the quarters with a lamp, like a bush lamp in the 70s, means there's been a huge gap in development from the 70s to now. It's really very, very interesting.
It is, and I even, like, from my own end, it was more of to get to school by 7 a.m. You have to literally walk through the bushes. So you guys assemble like in large numbers so that you guys can walk through the bushes, because you never know, you might get eaten, you might get beaten. It was really not that safe, but still they made those walks. Like, you walk such long distances, you walk 2 hours, 3 hours just to get to school. Us, the ordinary trek, if your parents tell you to trek to school, you know that they have just punished you. Why would my mom not give me allowance? Why would they not give me money for taxi? Hey, these people were trekking. But anyways, it makes sense because there was no form of transportation. We grew up in a world of, okay, there was at least a form of transportation. So I guess it was just very mean for you to tell me to trek when I can take a bus or I can take a taxi.
The long and short of it is we thank God for development, because, well, we're not been able.
Exactly.
So after Kumba, where are we going to?
After Kumba, we're going to the northwest.
Bamenda,
Shut up now, let me end.
Bamenda. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a Bamenda man, you're listening to this pod, you will live long. You will have children. In short, you are doing well.
And this is how people already know your tribe, yeah.
We proud of who we are. You get it? Get me?
We hear you. Cut to the chase. Take us away. Where's the first stop? Who are we visiting first?
We first of all stopping at Mobile. For anybody who has been to Bamenda, you know Mobile. You know Mobile. Now in Mobile there are 2 streets. We know of Cow Street, we know of Ghana Street. But the way these streets get their names are quite interesting. I'm going to leave an OG to explain to you how Cow Street got its name. But for Ghana Street, I'm going to pipe in because Ghana Street has nothing to do with the country Ghana. It has nothing to do with Ghana Must Goes. It actually has everything to do with Pa Guarantee, the owner of Guarantee Express.
Pa Guarantee, who died.
Yes.
He was a Bamileke man who came and settled there and opened a store and put the name Ghana. And the store was a very popular store there. So they used that store now to name that
whole street, Ghana.
Whole street.
From there, he became a bus agency owner, a hotel owner, amongst others. But that was the basis. Now, for Cow Street.
Okay, now my thing is, This Ghana, why was his shop named Ghana? There must have been some inspiration, there must have been something, maybe a product, maybe a slang. You know how these things go. But anyways, we'll obviously be bringing you all of that. The details behind the details is the reason why you have hidden carries. So trust us,
Stay
we'll bring
tuned.
you everything and anything that we get. Now to Cal Street.
Why they call that street Cow Street is because there used to be the cattle market up station there, up at Menampe. When you are going to Bamenda, you pass through the old road, new road. When you cross where they were dumping those
Around the Banja side.
that Banja side like that. When you take that bend to cross that stream, up that hill there's a cattle market there. That cattle market had been existing for ages, for a very long time. And then the whole of Bamenda, they had only one slaughterhouse that was around where Ayaba is. You understand now?
Mm-hmm.
So on a daily basis, people were going to that hill. When they buy cows there, the two people hold the cows.
Mm-hmm.
The cow, one person behind and one person ahead. They will start hitting the cow and running with the cow till it reaches the slaughterhouse. They used to pass when they come down from that Banja street like that. You know Totankwe,
Yes.
the other small total down.
Yes, that's more total now.
Yes, when you cross that stream, there's a pharmacy.
Okay,
there.
yes, somewhere around that Mile 2 junction.
Yes, before you climb up to Mile 2. You understand that?
Mm-hmm.
Before you climb up to Mile 2, where the Catholics have built that chain of stores near the graveyard.
Yes, I know it.
Yes, there's a road there that comes out. When they leave that hill, they come and pass through that road.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they just reach that total like that, they take that Cow Street. So on daily basis, cows were passing there. That is why they called it Cow Street.
And the last street we're going to talk about is, it's not really a street, it's more like a junction. Now it's almost around the same area. So you have Cow Street, Ghana Street, it connects in a roundabout, and that junction that leads upward towards Sunak Street is Gaines Junction. Now, Gaines Junction story, it's kind of like Fomenki Street story because it got its name because of a popular man who built his house there. His name was Pangin.
Gaines Junction. There's one man who used to live at Pangin. His compound is still there now. At that junction, that small roundabout like that, there's a compound inside there like that.
Where that small road goes up like
Yes. That is Gaines' house. So they used that man's name to name that junction. And that particular junction like that, accidents used to happen there. Because any vehicle that is coming from station and misses or loses brakes ends up there.
That's all we have for you on this episode. We hope you enjoyed our naming ceremony as much as we did. To those who were born or those who lived part of their childhoods in Limbe, in Kumba, those who have had the privileges of traveling to this area in Bamenda as well. Definitely, we know that these stories are not exhaustive. We don't have everything yet, and that's where you all come in. So if you have any story, if you know of how a quarter got its name, and feel free to write to us, please. We'd love to share the stories. But meanwhile, we'll always be updating this. So consider this maybe just part 1. Because as we get more stories, we'll go through more areas, go through the littoral region, I would love to go through the center region because damn,
those people have epic names. Their
names of quarters, please.
Right. Biscuiterie. How do you call a quarter biscuiterie?
Vogada. They're just crazy names.
No, but I heard Vok
That's
is kind of
so
like
true.
for Bamenda people. I heard Vok was kind of like the people of. I don't know. We'll have to verify all the stories, but
Yeah. So we have proofs, and there's some insights, but we're going to only bring you what is clear, what is affirmed, what is sure. But yeah,
if your town isn't actually mentioned and you want us to give a shout out, you have some history about your town that you want to share with us, by the time this episode comes up, we'll have social media handles and all that you could get to us and share any stories.
so once again, this brings us to the end of our naming ceremony / naming anniversary. And if you made it this far, thank you. You are the real, in fact, the realest G. And until we come your way again, guys, we are your host, Two Inquisitive Minds. And this is Hidden Towers.